David Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney+. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney+ every night.
Tonight, the breaking news here in Beijing. President Trump arriving for his high-stakes summit with China's President Xi, greeted by children waving Chinese and American flags. The war in Iran looming over this summit. China gets fuel from Iran. China is an ally of Iran's. So what will the U.S. ask China to do as gas prices back in the U.S. skyrocket? In the U.S. tonight, the stunning decision in a case followed by so many. Alex Murdaugh, the father and husband convicted of murdering his wife and son. Tonight, the verdict has been overturned, and why? The new images tonight, the plane crash off the East Coast, passengers floating in the ocean, the Coast Guard hovering above. They had 5 minutes left of fuel, faced with leaving passengers if they couldn't get them all to save them. Late today, the wife and mother convicted of killing her husband with a drink laced with fentanyl. She then wrote a book about children's grief after losing a parent. Well, tonight, after this conviction, her 3 young boys, one of the boys telling the judge, "I want her to go to prison forever." Tonight, the horrific scene. Lawmakers racing for cover as gunfire breaks out, the armed standoff. The hantavirus, one passenger now in critical condition, relying on an artificial lung to survive. In the U.S., 18 people are being watched. And tonight here, we hear from one American in quarantine, describing the doctors and nurses hidden in protective gear. All he can see are their eyes. The dramatic video from the wing of a plane, the emergency landing right on a busy street. Tonight, a police officer kicking down the door of a burning home, racing in to help a mother and her children escape the flames. Tonight here, the tributes to a former basketball star after his valiant battle against a brain tumor. The huge crowds cheering for Princess Catherine, her first solo trip, her cancer in remission. And you have to see this tonight, my journey here in China to find the humanoid robots, putting the world on notice. One of the robots walking right at us. The extreme tests, racing through snow in China in temperatures 53 degrees below zero. The robots ice skating, rollerblading, and doing chores in the home. The future is here, and tonight come with me, up close with the robots.
From ABC News, this is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, reporting tonight from Beijing.
Good evening. We do begin tonight with the breaking news right here from Beijing. A short time from now, President Trump and China's President Xi will meet face-to-face for their historic high-stakes summit. The meeting taking place, of course, in the shadow of the war in Iran. President Trump greeted by children waving Chinese and American flags as he stepped off Air Force One. The two leaders are expected to talk about trade and investments, but of course, Iran will also be on the agenda. With gas prices at a 4-year high in the U.S., President Trump is expected to urge President Xi to push Iran to agree to a deal and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. China, one of Iran's closest allies, gets fuel from Iran. Just before leaving the White House, President Trump insisted he would not need President Xi's help ending the war. But the world is closely watching what happens next. ABC's Mary Bruce also right here in Beijing, and she leads us off.
With great pomp and pageantry, China rolling out the red carpet for President Trump. 300 young people waving Chinese and American flags. Steps behind him, 2 of the major tech leaders he brought along, Elon Musk and AI chipmaker NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang. The president had hoped this trip would reset U.S. relations with China, the world's other economic superpower. The summit had already been rescheduled once because of the war in Iran. But the war is now in its 10th week, and China, by far the largest buyer of Iranian oil, now seeing its supply cut off. And while the president claims the war won't dominate the agenda, he knows it looms large.
We have a lot of things to discuss. I wouldn't say Iran is one of them, to be honest with you, because we have Iran very much under control.
The reality is Trump is expected to urge China to pressure Iran, its close ally. Iran's nearly 3-month blockade of the Strait of Hormuz causing gas prices back home to soar and inflation to spike, straining the budgets of American families already stretched thin. In Los Angeles tonight, more than 2,000 families lining up at a food distribution center before supplies ran out.
It's really bad. That's why we're here. You know, prices are going sky high. Everything's really pricey, even the gas and everything, so it makes it a little bit hard.
The president insists prices will plummet when the war ends. But tonight, the New York Times reports Iran still has roughly 70% of its pre-war missile stockpile and has restored operational access to 30 of the 33 missile sites along the Strait of Hormuz.
President Trump and Secretary Hegseth were kind of living in the fantasy land that somehow we drop enough bombs, we're good. That was never going to be the case.
And David, President Trump and Chinese President Xi meeting tonight, looking to discuss trade, technology, and artificial intelligence. But the fact is the war in Iran hangs over this summit. And tonight, a U.S. official tells ABC News that if American combat operations resume, they could be known by a new name, Operation Sledgehammer. David.
Mary, you and I will be live here in prime time later tonight when these two leaders meet. I'll see you then. And later in this broadcast tonight, the humanoid robots what I witnessed right here in China. It's extraordinary. In the meantime, we turn to the other breaking news back in the U.S. tonight. The stunning decision, a case making national headlines, of course, followed by millions. Alex Murdaugh, the father and husband, convicted of murdering his wife and son in South Carolina. Well, tonight, the verdict has now been overturned. And why? Here's Steve Osunsami.
South Carolina's highest court tonight was unanimous, overturning the murder convictions of Alex Murdaugh after the killings of his wife and son at their home in 2021. This comes because of the alleged actions of a court clerk. But his other convictions remain in place, and prosecutors underline that he will remain in prison tonight.
Alex Murdaugh will not be getting out of prison for several decades. It is currently my intention to seek a speedy retrial.
In throwing out his murder conviction, the state Supreme Court pointed to what they called shocking jury interference by a former county clerk. The justices said that Becky Hill, who helped handle the jury, placed her fingers on the scales of justice and denied Murdaugh his right to a fair trial by an impartial jury after they say she told some jurors not to be fooled by Murdaugh's defense and to watch him closely when he testified. One juror testified that the clerk told them to watch his body language, saying that this instruction influenced her vote to find Murdaugh guilty.
The state versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, guilty verdict.
Jurors decided on murder in less than 3 hours. Prosecutors argued that he killed his wife Maggie and his son Paul to distract from the financial crimes that he remains jailed for tonight.
The evidence of guilt is overwhelming.
None of this means that Murdaugh, who is 57 years old, is getting out of prison. He's serving a 40-year federal sentence and a 27-year state sentence for the financial crimes. Now he is eligible for a new murder trial, and prosecutors tonight say they're more than happy to give him one by the end of the year. As for that former clerk, she resigned from office and pleaded guilty to a number of misconduct-related charges, including perjury. David?
Steve Osunsami on the major turn in this case tonight. Thank you. Next tonight, here new images of the plane crash off the coast of Florida. 11 people spotted floating in the ocean, the Coast Guard hovering above. The Coast Guard had 5 minutes left of fuel, faced with leaving passengers if they couldn't get them all. Here tonight, Matt Rivers.
Tonight, you are looking at dramatic new images of a miraculous rescue 50 miles off the Florida coast after a plane crash. We're now learning that rescue chopper found the victims just minutes before they would run out of fuel and turn back for home. This Air Force combat rescue helicopter navigating the choppy seas, lowering toward the water. Clinging to those rafts below, 11 people whose small twin-turbo prop plane crashed into the ocean. The plane, bound for Grand Bahama International Airport, taking off Tuesday morning. Shortly after takeoff, the pilot experiencing engine failure, declaring an in-flight emergency, losing all communications with air traffic controllers. Around 11 a.m., a transmitter on board alerting the Coast Guard of a distress situation.
We just locked in and did what we had to do to make sure everyone came home.
The Coast Guard deploying several assets. Luckily, that Air Force rescue team was conducting a routine training mission nearby, now dodging thunderstorms and redirecting their mission to assist those passengers in the water.
Once we found there was 11, our immediate concern was, do we have to wait in space to take 11 people on board?
The crew airdropping survival kits and executing this challenging operation with limited fuel, hoisting 11 people to safety, completing the rescue with only 5 minutes of fuel left before needing to return to Florida.
I've not known anyone to survive ditching in the ocean. From what I've seen, for all those people to survive is pretty miraculous.
David, officials say that only 3 of the victims were treated for minor injuries. This rescue, truly a miracle. David?
Does an incredible rescue indeed. Matt Rivers tonight. Matt, thank you. Tonight here, the emotional sentencing for a mother and author convicted of murdering her husband, poisoning him with fentanyl, and then writing a children's book about grief after his death. Her son telling the judge, quote, "I want her to go to prison forever," and what the judge decided. Here's ABC's Trevor Ault.
This is the time set for sentencing.
Tonight, Kouri Richins will spend the rest of her life in prison for murdering her husband with a fentanyl-laced cocktail.
He's had 2 Eppies in American.
A person convicted of those things is simply too dangerous to ever be free.
The Utah mother sentenced without the possibility of parole moments after emotionally addressing her 3 sons.
I did not abandon you. I did not just walk out of your lives one day to never return, to never call.
But all her children told the judge in prepared impact statements read by their counselors that they wanted their mother locked up for good.
I want her to go to prison forever. If she got out, I would be so scared.
After the murder, Kouri Richins published a children's book on grief, which she promoted on TV, saying it was meant to help her children deal with the loss. She has adamantly denied killing her husband and today remained defiant talking to her boys.
Murder? No, absolutely not. I will not accept that.
Kouri Richins says she plans to appeal. Since her conviction, all of her letters to her children have been returned unopened. David.
Trevor Ault tonight. Trevor, thank you. Next this evening, the alarming images, the gunfire breaking out in the Philippine Senate, the armed standoff, a lawmaker wanted by authorities, opening fire, urging supporters to block his arrest. Here's ABC's Britt Clennett tonight.
Tonight, gunfire, screaming and chaos in the Philippine Senate. Multiple shots ringing out at around 7:30 p.m. Journalists who were broadcasting live pushed back by security, then running for their lives. Senators hiding.
We do not know who is behind this, but we will find them.
No one was hurt. The military personnel trying to enter the building where Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa had taken refuge since Monday, when the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant on charges of crimes against humanity. As the former National Police Chief, De La Rosa was the main enforcer of a years-long brutal crackdown on drug dealers and users by former President Rodrigo Duterte. He's been in hiding for months, but was spotted on Monday. Agents chasing him through the halls and stairwells of the Senate, he managed to escape into the Senate chamber where arresting officers have no authority.
And David, De La Rosa, he is still holed up in there, now telling his supporters to help him. David?
Britt Clennett with us tonight. Britt, thank you. We move on now to the race to contain the hantavirus. At least 36 people being monitored across the U.S. tonight, including 18 former cruise ship passengers now in quarantine units in Atlanta and Omaha. And tonight we hear from one of the Americans in quarantine what it's like when doctors and nurses enter that room. All he can see are their eyes. Here's Victor Akendo.
Tonight, the CDC says more than 100 officials are working around the clock after that deadly hantavirus outbreak on board a cruise ship. Nearly a dozen states now monitoring at least 18 people in the U.S., while a critically ill passenger in France needs an artificial lung. It comes as we are now hearing from the first American to test positive, who's now isolated in a biocontainment unit at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Dr. Stephen Kornfeld telling CNN about the precautions the medical team takes as they monitor him.
They're in full hazmat gear or proper protective gear, and I just see a pair of eyes.
The oncologist from Oregon jumped in to help passengers when the ship's doctor got sick.
It's a little weird being in here by myself, but the nurses come in, the doctors come in. I'm on WhatsApp all the time. It's really amazing how quickly time flies.
Kornfeld among 16 Americans being evaluated in Nebraska.
Good morning.
Jake Rosemarin now on day 3 of his quarantine.
So I just got the knock for the temperature check, so here's my thermometer. I'll turn it on, 98.6. Now I have to put on my mask so I can show the nurses.
Tonight, 11 confirmed cases of hantavirus worldwide. That patient in Paris now in intensive care with severe symptoms.
David, health officials in Illinois are monitoring a potential hantavirus case. This is not related to the cruise ship. David?
Victor Akendo in Omaha for us again tonight. Victor, thank you. When we come back here on the broadcast, dramatic video tonight from the wing of a plane, the emergency landing on a busy street, and you'll see it right here. Also, a police officer kicking down the door of a burning home, racing in to help a mother and her children escape the flames. And right here in Beijing, you have to see this tonight. My journey here in China to find the humanoid robots putting the world on notice tonight. One of the robots walking right at us, the extreme tests, racing through snow in China in temperatures 53 degrees below zero, robots ice skating, rollerblading, even doing chores in the family home. You'll see these robots coming up here in a moment. Don't go away. Next tonight here, dramatic new video of a terrifying incident, a 360 camera on the wing of a small plane, capturing the emergency landing on a busy street in central Phoenix. The plane experienced engine problems shortly after taking off from a private airport in Phoenix in April. The pilot making a split-second decision to land the plane on the open roadway. The pilot and two passengers walked away without injuries. Tonight, a Chattanooga, Tennessee police officer is being hailed as a hero. The officer kicking down the door and telling a family to leave an apartment engulfed in flames. That officer then races into the flames to save the family, escaping with a 4-year-old girl in his arms. Her mother then follows with another child. Everyone is safe. The apartment was destroyed. When we come back here on the broadcast right here in China, the humanoid robots, what I witnessed right here in Beijing today, you won't forget it in a moment. To the index of other news tonight, tributes are pouring in this evening for NBA trailblazer Jason Collins. The league's first openly gay active player died Tuesday after an 8-month battle with brain cancer. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver praising Collins for his impact both on and off the court. And former teammate and coach Jason Kidd tonight writing, quote, "This one hurts." Jason Collins was just 47. Tonight, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, is in Italy, her first solo international trip since her cancer diagnosis, now in remission. Enthusiastic crowds lining the streets to greet the future queen. She shook hands and posed for selfies. The 2-day trip is part of her focus on early childhood development and education. When we come back here tonight, the humanoid robots here in China, putting the world on notice. It certainly got my attention today. You'll see them right after the break. Finally tonight here, my journey here in China to find the humanoid robots putting the world on notice. We land here in Beijing, the American flags and the Chinese, for this high-stakes summit, where the global race to lead on artificial intelligence and robotics technology is on. And we go to find the robots. This AI developer conference, one of the biggest here in China. You can see the future is walking right towards us. One of the humanoid robots here on display at the conference. This humanoid robot stands at 5'5". They call him Ollie. This robot weighs about 121 pounds. You're convinced this robot is going to be able to do chores in the family home?
Yes, yes.
It's bowing already. It's bowing already. You've taught the robot how to bow, but you think that's just the beginning. Yes, they tell us, proud to show us this. Through artificial intelligence, you've trained the robot to be able to lay down and then get back up. They program these robots with data on human movement. This robot weighs 121 pounds, laying completely down, and then sitting back up like a human. They consider this a major technical leap.
You have a waist, and that means makes him more flexible.
Oh, the waist.
The waist.
Yeah. It's all in the hips. And they tell me this is just a start, but what they've been able to do already is eye-opening. This is the G1 humanoid robot built by the Chinese robotics company Unitree. They have put the robot through extreme tests, walking through deep snow in northwestern China, freezing Arctic-level temperatures 53 degrees below zero. That same robot on rollerblades and on ice skates, doing flips. And look at this, 50 of those robots in unison. And their newest model just this week, the GD01, transforming from 2 to 4 legs and able to carry a human. The U.S. is building robotics too, but by some estimates, these Chinese humanoid robots now account for nearly 80% of sales worldwide. And we look for one of those Unitree G1 humanoid robots right here. So this is the robot that you've seen rollerblading, ice skating, testing temperatures, Arctic level temperatures. We go for a walk with the robot. It then performs martial arts and dance moves too. And it's something we hear over and over again here. The workers at Unitree tell us they are convinced these robots will soon help in the home with daily chores. We ask, what will this robot do? What do you see the robot doing to help humans? They tell us it'll help in the home and at factories too. And we ask, will it replace humans?
It will not replace humans, but it will replace some work that human does.
Won't replace the human, but replace some of the work. Be very careful, right?
But already the household chores. Not far from us, the robot folding laundry.
Not bad, huh? All right, there you go. I mean, I can still fold faster than the robot.
And they tell us here that laundry is just the start. Unitary robots are being programmed to make beds, help clean the house, to do the dishes. The people here are mesmerized.
Who wins the artificial intelligence race when it comes to robots? China? The US?
I usually think it's China.
You think it's going to be China?
Yes. It has to be China.
You say to the American.
Tonight, the humanoid robots we witness coming right at us, part of this newest frontier to win artificial intelligence.
It certainly makes you sit up straight, doesn't it? It sure did for me. I'll see you later tonight in prime time, the 10 o'clock hour Eastern time, as these two leaders greet one another. And of course, I'll see you right here tomorrow night. Good night.
David Muir, the most trusted anchor in America, the most watched anchor in America. Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir the #1 newscast in America.